1992. Shaquille O'Neal didn't enter the NBA. He detonated inside it. As a rookie, he averaged 23.4 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks, instantly turning an expansion Magic team into a playoff threat. At 7'1" and over 300 pounds, he moved like a wing and finished like a wrecking ball. Defenses had no answers, so they started hacking him instead. That didn't slow his impact. Shaq became a 15-time All-Star, won 4 championships, 3 Finals MVPs, and finished his career with over 28,500 points. But this class wasn't a one-man act. Alonzo Mourning quietly built a Hall of Fame resume with 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards and over 2,300 career blocks, anchoring elite defenses for more than a decade. Christian Laettner never reached superstardom, yet still logged 13 seasons and an All-Star appearance. It gets crazier. Latrell Sprewell exploded into relevance, averaging over 20 points per game across multiple seasons and becoming the emotional engine of deep playoff runs in New York. Tom Gugliotta peaked as a 20-8 All-Star. The criticism of 1992 is depth, because the talent fell off fast after the top tier. But Shaq's dominance alone reshaped roster construction, defensive strategy, and even rule enforcement. When one draft forces the league to adapt around a single player, its legacy becomes unavoidable. However, this list is only going to get crazier as we move from the least insane draft in 1992 to the most insane draft at the end of the video. 2001. This draft began with one of the loudest misses ever and somehow turned into a quiet success story. Kwame Brown went first overall and never became more than a role player, averaging just 6.6 points across his career. But everything after that pick steadily delivered value. Pau Gasol emerged as one of the most skilled big men of his era, winning 2 championships, making 6 All-Star teams, and averaging nearly 19 points per game across 18 seasons. Tony Parker, drafted 28th, became a Finals MVP and 4-time champion, averaging 15.5 points and redefining speed at the point guard position. But that's not all. Tyson Chandler anchored elite defenses, won Defensive Player of the Year, and started for a title team in Dallas. Joe Johnson scored over 20,000 career points while making 7 All-Star teams. Zach Randolph quietly compiled 18,578 points and 10,208 rebounds, becoming the heartbeat of Memphis basketball. Gilbert Arenas had a brief but explosive peak, averaging over 29 points in a season before injuries and controversies derailed his trajectory. This class never produced an MVP, but it produced winners everywhere. Long careers, playoff contributors, championship starters, and late-round steals defined its legacy. While the first pick became a cautionary tale, the rest of the board kept producing meaningful players for nearly 2 decades, proving depth can sometimes outweigh star power. 1999. This draft never crowned a single superstar, and that's exactly why it mattered. Instead of one dominant name, value emerged from everywhere. Sean Marion became the ultimate connector, averaging 18.6 points and 10 rebounds while winning a championship and doing everything without plays drawn for him. Ron Artest turned defense into chaos, winning Defensive Player of the Year and delivering one of the most iconic final shots ever in 2010. Richard Hamilton anchored finals teams in Detroit with nonstop movement and mid-range precision. Jason Terry became a postseason assassin, averaging nearly 20 points during Dallas's 2011 title run. Then came the shocker. Manu Ginobili went 57th overall and became a Hall of Famer, winning 4 championships while redefining efficiency, creativity, and international influence. But that's not all. Lamar Odom filled every column on the stat sheet and won 2 titles. Elton Brand averaged 20 and 10 at his peak. Andrei Kirilenko became a defensive Swiss Army knife before positionless basketball had a name. This class produced 14 players with at least 50 career win shares, an absurd depth number. Coaches loved it. Contenders relied on it. Championships were decided by players pulled from the middle and bottom of this board. There was no face of the league here, just a relentless supply of winning basketball players. 2009, this draft didn't just change teams, it changed basketball itself. Stephen Curry went 7th and quietly began rewriting the sport, becoming a 2-time MVP, 4-time champion, and the most prolific shooter the game has ever seen. James Harden followed and averaged over 25 points per game across a decade, winning MVP in 2018 while redefining isolation scoring. Blake Griffin went first overall and delivered immediate impact, averaging 21.8 points in his prime and finishing top 3 in MVP voting. But it gets worse for defenses. DeMar DeRozan scored over 23,000 career points. Drew Holiday became one of the most valuable two-way guards of his era, anchoring championship defenses. Danny Green won titles with 3 different franchises. The depth argument always comes up, but the top end changed everything. Curry alone forced defenses to extend 30 feet from the rim. Harden turned spacing into weaponized math. Together, they reshaped roster construction, shot selection, and offensive philosophy across every level of basketball. Entire generations of players model their games after names from this class. Few drafts can claim they altered how the sport is played. 2009 didn't just age well, it grew more influential every single season. 1998, this draft recovered from an early disaster and somehow became historic anyway. Michael Olawokandi went first overall and never became a star, but everything after him delivered lasting impact. Dirk Nowitzki went 9th and changed scoring geometry forever, winning MVP in 2007, Finals MVP in 2011, and finishing with 31,560 career points. Vince Carter brought aerial dominance and longevity, averaging over 20 points per game for a decade and playing 22 seasons. Paul Pierce became the backbone of a championship Celtics team, scoring 26,397 points and earning Finals MVP. Anton Jamison quietly surpassed 20,000 career points with multiple All-Star appearances. Rashard Lewis became an early spacing weapon before the league fully understood spacing. This class blended innovation, durability, and adaptability. Dirk's one-legged fadeaway became a league-wide blueprint. Carter extended the shelf life of athletic wings. Pierce built a reputation on clutch shot making and postseason toughness. Even with a notorious bust at the top, this draft produced 3 franchise-defining stars and several elite secondary contributors. It wasn't flawless, but its influence stretched across 2 eras, proving that greatness doesn't always come from the first name called. 1987. This draft quietly delivered greatness without theatrics, and its impact lasted longer than most flashier classes. David Robinson went first overall and immediately became one of the most dominant two-way centers the league has ever seen. He averaged 21.1 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 3 blocks across his career, won MVP in 1995, and anchored 2 championship teams in San Antonio. Scottie Pippen followed and became the ultimate complementary superstar, winning 6 championships while redefining perimeter defense and playmaking at forward. Reggie Miller arrived later and turned off ball movement into an art form, finishing with over 25,000 points and countless playoff daggers. But that's not all. Kevin Johnson peaked as one of the fastest guards in the league, averaging over 20 points and 10 assists in multiple seasons. Horace Grant became a defensive anchor on championship teams. Mark Jackson retired top 5 all-time in assists. This draft blended stars who thrived in different roles and systems, stretching its relevance across the 1990s. It wasn't overloaded with volume, but its top end aged gracefully, and its secondary pieces mattered in winning environments. Robinson set standards for centers. Pippen changed how wings were evaluated. Miller forced defenses to chase shooters relentlessly. This class didn't overwhelm the league all at once. It shaped how teams thought about balance, fit, and longevity, and that influence never really faded. 1985. This draft stacked dominance in ways that didn't feel fair. Patrick Ewing went first overall and immediately became the backbone of the Knicks, averaging 21 points and 10 rebounds while anchoring elite defenses for over a decade. But the real shock came later. Karl Malone went 13th and turned into one of the most durable scorers in league history, finishing second all-time in points with 36,928 and earning 2 MVP awards. But that's not all. Chris Mullin became one of the most efficient scorers of the late 1980s, making 5 All-Star teams and posting elite shooting splits. Joe Dumars went 18th and became the steady hand behind Detroit's Bad Boys dynasty, winning Finals MVP and earning 6 all-defensive selections. Detlef Schrempf helped stretch the floor before stretch forwards were common, winning multiple sixth-man awards. Charles Oakley built a career on intimidation, rebounding, and toughness, becoming a cultural staple in New York. This class blended physical dominance, scoring longevity, and championship toughness. Malone's consistency bordered on absurd. Ewing's presence defined an entire franchise. Dumars quietly shut down superstars while hitting clutch shots. There was no single style here, just impact. Across scoring, defense, leadership, and durability, this draft kept showing up deep into the playoffs year after year, and its fingerprints are still visible in how teams value strength and reliability today. 2003. This draft felt legendary the moment it started and somehow exceeded the hype. LeBron James went first overall and became the most scrutinized prospect in sports history, then delivered anyway. He finished with 4 MVPs, 4 championships, over 40,000 points, and elite longevity unmatched in modern basketball. Dwayne Wade followed and peaked as the most explosive guard of his era, winning Finals MVP and 3 titles. Carmelo Anthony became one of the purest scorers ever, finishing top 10 all-time in points. Chris Bosh quietly adapted his game and became the connective tissue of championship teams. But it gets crazier. This class also produced long-term starters and playoff contributors like David West, Josh Howard, Kyle Korver, Boris Diaw, and Mo Williams. The criticism has always been depth, yet the top end warped the league. LeBron alone forced front offices into win-now panic. Wade redefined attacking guards. Melo changed scoring aesthetics. This draft dominated headlines, debates, and finals matchups for 2 straight decades. And before we go any further, but first, only cool people are subscribed to this channel. So hit that subscribe button before we go any further, because drafts like this don't come around often, and the next 2 somehow get even stronger. 1996. This draft didn't just flood the league with talent, it overwhelmed it. Allen Iverson went first and instantly became the face of cultural change, winning MVP and leading the league in scoring 4 times. Kobe Bryant followed at 13 and built one of the most decorated careers ever, finishing with 5 championships, 18 All-Star selections, and over 33,000 points. Steve Nash arrived later and became a 2-time MVP, redefining pace, spacing, and offensive efficiency. Ray Allen turned shooting into a weapon, retiring as the all-time leader in made threes and delivering iconic finals moments. But that's not all. This class was absurdly deep. Jermaine O'Neal became an all-NBA force. Marcus Camby won Defensive Player of the Year. Peja Stojakovic helped fuel elite offenses. Antoine Walker and Stephon Marbury carried franchises. Derek Fisher delivered postseason heroics. Even the middle rounds mattered. This draft produced stars, secondary stars, and high-level role players everywhere. It shaped offense, defense, culture, and style all at once. You could build contenders entirely out of 1996 players. Few drafts offered this much flexibility, influence, and sustained relevance. It didn't rely on one superstar. It stacked greatness across every layer of the league. 1984. This is where the conversation ends. Michael Jordan went third and became the measuring stick for greatness itself, winning 6 championships, 5 MVPs, and redefining global sports culture. Hakeem Olajuwon went first and became the most skilled defensive big ever, winning MVP, 2 championships, and anchoring elite defenses with footwork no one could copy. Charles Barkley brought unstoppable efficiency, winning MVP and finishing with over 23,000 points despite being undersized. John Stockton went 16th and quietly became the all-time leader in assists and steals, records that still feel untouchable. But that's not all. Alvin Robertson won Defensive Player of the Year. Otis Thorpe and Kevin Willis logged long, productive careers. Sam Perkins stretched the floor before it was normal. This draft didn't just produce stars, it produced pillars. Jordan defined winning. Hakeem defined defense. Stockton defined consistency. Barkley defined efficiency. Every great class gets measured against 1984, and none have surpassed it. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you are going to really love.